Well, thank you for coming to my little talk. So my husband is really into the BlackBerry. Don't ask me why. He's trying to keep research in motion in business. He even got his teenage daughter to switch over from iPhone to BlackBerry. So he downloaded the workout program called Endomundo for BlackBerry. And he's really excited. It's going to be, it's going to keep him on track at the gym. It's going to be really good. So the first day that he took it to the gym, he came back and he had this expression on his face like I'd done something wrong. And I said, what's up? And he said, guess who's the voice of Endomundo? Yeah, they were using the Kepstrel text-to-speech utility, so now he thinks I'm pestering him at the gym or something. I told him to think about it as though I was like, supporting him, going, 5 more, you can do it. So, yes, this is my talk. I did a blog series a couple years ago for Digium on their site called The 15 Commandments of IVR. And they actually made it into an ebook. So if the slides look a little too wordy, I know I'm violating the rules of presentations, but I wanted to stay pretty true to the ebook. So. And I'm always a little in shock when I'm asked to speak, or in this case, if I submit an idea for a talk, never thinking it's going to be accepted, and it is. Because I'm not an expert on writing telephone systems. I'm not a professional IVR designer. But voicing prompts every day, I have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. And I came to a couple of realizations. Clients have a tendency to imitate what they hear in existing telephone systems, rather than really think about what they should have in their own system. And the other realization is that they really don't have a very good idea of what to write, and they quite frequently ask me to write their scripts for them. I don't. I will advise them once they've come up with a script. But so this blog series and this talk will be about the common pitfalls, the things that work and the things that don't. So, the very first commandment, if there's only one takeaway that you bring with you from this talk, let it be this. People's attention spans are shorter than you think they are. There's kind of a common misconception that once you have a caller who's dialed into your system, we have them captive. We can inundate them with information about our company. We can flood them with information. The purpose of a good telephone system is to obviously tell the caller that they've reached the right company, to funnel them into the correct departments that they need, which will reduce frustration for them. It will better utilize your call center staff. That's all there is to it, plain and simple. The second commandment, thou shalt not create fake mailboxes. This is so sneaky, and many people do it. I voice for a lot of Fortune 500 companies, huge international companies, but I probably voice for as many little tiny companies, 1 or 2 guys that run a company, and they all want to sound bigger than they are. Quite often these people will design websites that are beautiful and slick, and it creates the illusion that, wow, there must be dozens of people working for this company. Quite often they will pad their telephone system with way too many options to create the illusion that there's more people working there than really are. So in addition to violating rule number 1 about the attention span issue, there's also something like a little bit dishonest about it. So I have an example of a nicely written opening prompt, but then obviously this phone tree is, in my mind, a little too long. Carrie's speech just now sort of validated that. He thought, I think he said 3 options. 3 or 4 options is probably the most that you can expect people to actually read, let alone remember. I think this is probably asking people to sit through far too much. Commandment number 3. Again, we're kind of hammering this home, myself and Mr. Garrison just now, but keep it simple. Boil it down to its most basic options possible. And if you have to do a sub-menu, it should maybe stick to 2 or 3 options at the very most as well. Commandment number Commandment number 4. Always give callers an opt-in. So the common thinking before was that if you give the caller an option to go to a live operator, they will abuse that. They won't even listen to any of the options, and they'll just go straight there. I actually think that's probably inaccurate now. I think people are actually very turnkey. They enjoy arriving at the solution by themselves, and they want the options to address what they're looking for. So by all means, create an opt-in, as we have here, the very last selection on that menu. Have an opt-in, but make it measurable and make it traceable. If too many people are, dumping the options and going straight to a live agent, that could tell you that perhaps the options that you've written are not usable and probably not the ones that should be there. Pretty self-evident so far. Commandment number 5, front load important information. It's really critical that you list the most sensitive, time-sensitive, critical, and safety-related information first. I always tell the story of it was a cardiology clinic in Florida that I read their IVR, and they had numerous options, too many options that kind of violated that first rule. But the very last option, I'll just go ahead and show you. If this is a medical emergency, hang up and call 911. I think I would probably front stack that and put that at the beginning of the phone tree. And they literally had that many options before they hear the safety message. So I think it's incredibly important to make sure that you do that. Commandment number 6, understand what constitutes a prompt. This can sometimes be kind of confusing. The voice talent needs to know where to edit the prompt. So a prompt is from edit point to edit point. So this opening message here is actually fairly self-explanatory. It looks like it's an entity in and of itself. Other examples maybe aren't quite so evident. This comes up every now and then, and it took me a while to figure out what people are doing. The number 1, the number 2, and 3 and 4, and it continues on the next slide. Those are all one thought. The things that are following after are sub-menus. They've written it this way to sort of be straight in their head as to what prompts follow that first selection. See, bad continues on the next slide. What should happen is that they should actually just be grouped according to that is the opening message, then you're getting into the subsequent sub-menus. It's fairly clear, it seems fairly obvious, but a lot of people don't think of the prompts as editable sections, which your voice talent needs to know about. For bonus points, and Carrie brought it up about the call flow, it's very important to map that out, but don't make that into your script. Do not name your prompt what the prompt is. Many, many people do this. They put an underscore in between each word that is basically the prompt. It's typing hell for the voice talent. So boil it down to either, look at that, that's beautiful, no outages, or even number the prompts. As long as your system knows how to send out what you need, that's perfect. Okay. Commandment number 7, understand the effects of proper punctuation in concatenation. It's fun to say. Basically, how you write a prompt will affect how it's delivered and how it will fit into your call flow. So the old style thinking with old IVR systems was, if we get the voice talent to read it in a very neutral, very flat manner, you won't have any issues with things not flowing smoothly and funny ups and downs. That worked in theory, however, it created a very flat, very robotic, almost kind of a monotone, automaton kind of sense. So I use the example frequently of your PIN number, which starts with a capital and ends in an ellipse. That tells the voice talent, obviously, that this is the start of a thought, and then it trails off, and it is attached to another prompt. Again, it seems kind of obvious. Or you could have an ellipse beginning it with a period. That tells us, of course, that that is attached onto an existing phrase or prompt. If you have it freestanding, with ellipses on either side, we're going to leave it in a very neutral, open-ended way to have something attached onto it and to have something attached onto the end. What I do, I literally, in the booth, will do up hand signal, down hand signal, and a neutral, especially if I'm doing sequence-based prompts such as numbers, months, anything that has a good chance of having something attached onto the front and the end. So I will do numbers such as 5, 5, 5. So the two kind of sound a little similar, but you get the idea. Almost everyone will have me read sequence-based thoughts in an up-ending, down-ending, and neutral fashion. Commandment number 8. Thou shalt not give directions to your office or facility. I want to see the end to this. We all do. This is a prime example of something that people find on existing telephone systems, and they think, well, we need to give directions on how to reach us coming from every direction in town. It's outdated, it's obsolete with GPS being so prevalent in every handheld device and most vehicles. Instead, I'd love to see people say, you know, here's our address. Please enter our address into any GPS-enabled device to find us. That's kind of how I'd like to see things progress that way. So, yes, I've put a big X through it. Don't do it. Don't have me.
What about your website on the phone system?
That's great. Yeah. Although it could be argued that by the time they're calling you, they've already been to your website. I think they probably have that. But yeah, I don't see the harm in doing that. I just think don't give directions. So this is a big one. Give pronunciation guides for proper names and places. You probably have a good idea of which names in your phone tree have a good chance of being mispronounced. It's almost always proper names or place names. So if there's anything that you think has a good chance of being mispronounced, provide a phonetic key. These were words that came up not that long ago for me that could have gone either way. Innis or Inns, Hebron, Hebron. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that unless you're living in that area or you're familiar with someone named Nunez, could it be Nunes, Nunez? We're not sure. Provide a guide. The city I live in, Calgary, Tara's from Calgary, natives say Calgary, right? People from out of town say Calgary, the way it's spelled, but whenever anyone says Calgary, we go, oh, where are you from? So, yeah. But you wouldn't know that unless you're based there. Exactly, yeah. If you want to fit in, just say Calgary in the very lazy way. Okay, number 10. Name your company that needs no special instruction. So it may probably already be too late. By the time you contact someone to voice your telephone system, you've already named your company. Many long hours have been spent, brainstorming about, ooh, what should we call our company? I'm going to submit that if you're thinking of launching another company, take into consideration how the name will sound to the ear. It's very, very different seeing it on the page as opposed to how it will be heard and typed into a browser, right? So off to the side in the tips section, I give this mythical company Ignition. Ignition, isn't that cool? It's spelled completely differently, but it sounds like ignition. It is clever. However, someone hearing that is probably going to want to type it into the browser the way they think it's probably spelled. So it seems almost as though people are deliberately trying to be hard to find or hard to reach. So please take into consideration when you're naming your company. Some of these names that you may have heard of really needed no special instruction. You knew exactly how to pronounce Google the first time you saw it. I did a system recently for a company in Ireland. I hope they don't watch this. Oh, well. Their name is Debtors Exchange, but I soon found out that if I said it too fast, it sounded like debt or sex change. Debt or something. I choose debt if I had to choose. And even typing their company's name into the browser, I was typing and going, oh, sex change. I just typed sex change. So take it into consideration. And if you're watching, I'm sorry. Okay. Commandment number 11, don't go overboard with niceties. So this is something that comes up a lot in on-hold systems. Thank you for holding. Your time is important to us. You know those. Yeah, everyone's nodding. It's fine to have those peppered occasionally throughout the system. I think if people hear it too often, it sounds disingenuous. So control the amount of times that you thank them so much for their patience. They'd rather have their call taken sooner than later than have to listen to too much of that. This is a tough one. Read the copy out loud. Again, this comes back to things being completely different to the ear as opposed to on the page. So it's amazing how many people don't sit and read their copy out loud. I think they don't want to be branded as the office weirdo sitting at their desk chatting to themselves. Find an empty conference room and read your script out loud, or have someone read it to you. Quite often, if there's awkward phrasings in a telephone system, it won't come out until you've actually heard it. Quite often, also, clients will give me the clearance to sort of change things if it sounds funny to me as I'm voicing it. But it's probably a good idea just to hear it kind of on its feet and see if there's any awkward phrasings. Be clear on your company's vision and be prepared to explain that to me. So again, a lot of people give a lot of thought to their website and what sort of image that projects. They'll even spend a lot of time on their office decor, and if they do any sort of broadcast, they put a lot of thought into what should our radio spots sound like, what should our TV spots. They don't actually, or many don't, actually think about how the telephone voice projects the image of your company. Are you in a conservative industry, sort of an older, more conservative clientele, or are you sort of a young upstart, kind of irreverent? Your phone system should reflect that. And once you're clear on that message, you should be able to convey that to your voice talent. And hopefully that could drive your choice of voice talent, but it could also just give you some clear direction on how to tell them to approach the script. Don't front load too much information on the opening greeting. Again, this ties back to the whole keeping it simple thing that we're kind of hammering home to you today. Again, the attention span is shorter than you think. If people wish to impart information about their company to a caller, I always tell them they should set up a dedicated information line. If you'd like to hear more about XYZ company, press 5 to hear about our background. Those that have the time and the inclination to listen to it can. Those who don't want to be inundated with the information don't have to be. I have changed the identity of the client, but this is verbatim an opening prompt that somebody sent me, which is literally a commercial for XYZ and how come their grommets and widgets are so much better than their competitions, and that you'll probably die if you use the other guy's widgets, and we've been making widgets since, long ago. This is all before somebody even encounters telephone options. They're bombarded with this commercial. So resist the urge to do that. I interviewed Emily Yellen recently for my blog. She's a customer relation expert. She's kind of a guru. And I asked her about the whole dedicated information line or on hold. And she said, no, she doesn't even want to hear any of that information at all. Again, she's already been to your website. She knows a lot about your company so far. She doesn't even seem to think that even on hold. I said to her, what about an on-hold system? Where if people are waiting, they might as well just, listen to information. She said, no. She didn't even seem to think that was appropriate in that instance. So, commandment number 15, write in a conversational tone. This is probably the number one direction that voice talent are given. We want you to sound conversational, like you're talking to your best friend. I told this story on the VoIP users channel that I had to voice an on-hold system for marine-grade sealants. And they said, act like you're talking to your best friend about marine-grade sealants. When my friends and I get together and have martinis, we can't stop talking about the marine-grade sealants. No, write the material in a conversational tone if that is the image that you want to project. And basically, I think those are the 15 commandments boiled down. You could visit the Asterisk Exchange, that's kind of hard to say, for any sort of other asterisk add-ons. And thank you for your time and attention. What a great turnout.
Thank you. Now, it's very rarely you would get the opportunity to ask questions face-to-face of somebody like Allison. And right now, you do have that opportunity.
Oh, yeah, they've hardly had the chance these last few days.
Please, to raise your hand first so we can bring the microphone over to you because we're recording this session. And we've got our first contestant over there.
Contestant. Hello. Hi.
So, are you? Should you say hello or thank you and things like that in the beginning? Like, is it better to just say you have reached this and this, or you say hello, thank you for your call, or at the end say?
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with that at all. Again, I think it comes back to not using it too often, and it does sort of address what style of company you have. So if it's informal, if your company is just kind of relaxed and informal and you're getting your voice to also voice it in that same kind of friendly demeanor, I see no problem in saying, hi, thanks for calling. It really depends on the image that you're trying to project. But yeah, the going overboard with niceties was really more about the on-hold systems and thanking people too much for their patience. Just get them through to the department they want to talk to first. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you. And our next question. Oh, there's a lady. I've walked all the way back.
Same area.
I must learn to stay in place.
Hi. I'm just curious from your experience and knowledge. If there's statistics for success in certain accents or even gender.
Oh, okay. So are you wondering if there's a bias or a preference to gender?
Yeah, would sales better or have
There certainly is, and it's towards female, I'm very happy to say. Yeah, no, I mean, there are lots of men that do IVR. I think United Airlines has a great guy, and he sounds very candid. He sounds very natural. Telephony, for some reason, still kind of gravitates more towards a choice of female talent. Your double-part question about accents is interesting because I am actually called upon a lot to do British accents. Yeah, and it's usually people that want to convey an upper-end product. It's really funny, especially, from the American sensibility, they think, okay, this is a really high-end car. Let's have you do an Italian or British accent. So it's kind of fun. And I do have fun with that. I have a theater background, so I kind of like playing around with accents. It has to be done in such a way that's respectful, and definitely you have to commit to it. But yeah, no, good follow-up.
Yeah, good question. In the UK, particularly around finance, the Scottish accent is the trusted one.
It is.
A lot of banks actually use Scottish voice.
But listen to that accent. It's so classy.
I wouldn't say that. Okay, where's our next question coming from? Okay, can we pass that one?
David is sick of running around.
Hi. What do you find to be the most challenging part of your job?
Wow, that's a good question. Sorry, what? Yeah, going to Astrakhan. Yeah, no, not challenging at all. No, I would say I love doing larger projects, but of course they require a bit of a time commitment, and you have to really make sure you have energy available to do it. So I usually front stack my recording for the morning. I find that I'm fresher and I have more energy the earlier in the day. When I did the Capstrol text-to-speech Allison voice, they sent me almost like a phone book-sized script. And I had to devote quite a few hours a day into doing these nonsensical sentences. And so you just kind of have to get into the mindset of, okay, we got to do 10 pages today. And it's a bit of a marathoner. I'm more of a sprinter than a marathoner. That's why I kind of like telephone prompts. Fits my attention span. And it's like short bursts of energy as opposed to the voice talent that can read an entire ebook, which I admire, but I'm just not one of those that does the bigger, longer projects.
Thanks for your honesty, Alison.
Yeah, well, I'm here to be honest.
Okay, who's got the next question? There's one here.
any pointers for voicemail box greetings?
Good question. Hammering it home again, trying to keep it as short and as simple as possible. People know what information to leave on a voicemail system. You know, everyone says, leave your name, your number, and the time you called. Like, no one's going to get mixed up and leave like a Jell-O recipe. And hi, I'm Allison. My shoe size is 8.5, and I live at, you know, no one's going to give that information. They're going to give, you know, their name, number, and sometimes the time they called.
What is this American fixation with leaving a detailed message?
Yeah, I don't.
Please leave me a detailed message.
And I'm sure some people have taken that off of their voicemail system and going, oh, this message went on for 10 minutes. I didn't want quite that much detail. Oh, I don't know.
Okay, we've got time for a couple more questions.
Questions?
Hey, there's a question.
There he is.
There's a QIP question. That's
Okay.
quite an important person.
Sorry. Can you slate your name first before you ask your question? Yeah.
My name's Mark. And my
Okay.
question is, do you offer consulting in addition to just recording the prompts? Do you offer consulting on layout of IVRs and things like that?
Well, Mike, thanks for that question. Actually, no, I don't. What I'll do is I will advise clients if something is kind of wonky with their script and it's just not reading smoothly. So I'll offer my opinion if solicited. Some people, especially if their script has gone through actual legal approval, there can't be any changes made to it. If you deal with the bigger corporations, it's like Shakespeare, you cannot change a note. So no, I don't actually offer consultation. I think it has to do with hours in the day. I'm pretty busy doing what I do.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And the other thing I think that...
One question per... No, I'm kidding.
that maybe was hinted around, but if you would clarify whether or not you'll do accents if people request them and which ones you will do.
Yeah, as I addressed with this lady, I do actually a lot of British accents. I'm on a website that features voice talent, and they have my regular voice, and then they have an alter ego, my British alter ego called Jane. And oddly enough, she gets more work than I do. But it ends up in the same bank account, so I'm not too upset about that. So yes, the British is quite often called upon. I did a voicemail system for a Ferrari dealer, and I had to kind of pile on. They wanted a very cheesy Italian accent, so I kind of had fun with that. I mentioned on the VoIP users channel, I did a voicemail for a publisher of mystery novels, and their IVR was written as though I was reading the opening passage of a mystery novel. It was so neat. It was like, it's a dark and stormy night that you've called our company. It was cool. I like doing stuff like that. Yeah.
I think I've come across you on ratemyaccent.com as well. Okay, another question.
But I'm trying to nail the David Duffett accent. That's a specific one.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any experience where we're doing patient survey. Patients, we're calling patient after being discharged from the hospital. And we did a little pilot, and we found that they liked when we would say, you know, how are you feeling? If they said, well, we'd say, oh, we're glad to hear that. I'm just wondering if you had any experience now. You know, kind of get a feeling they like that positive feedback.
That's speech recognition as well.
Yeah, I actually did it was I think it was for the University of Michigan, and they had a program for diabetic aftercare. So the messages were more like, you know, this is week 2 of your aftercare call. We want to find out how you're doing. But it was more of a survey. It was more, do you feel better since your surgery? Do you feel worse? Yeah, so it wasn't really intuitive and interactive in that sense. But yeah, it was kind of neat. And always with the pharmaceutical voicing, they seem to want a very calm and reassuring voice. So I sort of aimed for that. Yeah. Yeah, but there is a product called Allison On Demand that will call your, yeah, no, I shouldn't promote that. No, but that's a directory of names that would call patients in a personalized way, so that might be a useful product.
Top class. I don't know whether you picked up on that subliminal message.
It was very subliminal, it was very subtle. Go to the exhibit hall. Yeah.
And also the subliminal message that she gives you help with your prompts if you ask for it. That sounds like
Absolutely.
free consultancy.
Well, it kind of does, doesn't it?
It's pretty good. One of the things you said struck a chord with me about people wanting to kind of get out to a live operator or choose an IVR. Sometimes people really want an IVR.
Yeah.
And one of our customers in the UK got a job with hospital, and in particular the section that tests for certain kinds of diseases. I think you know what I mean, don't you? Those certain kinds of diseases. And when people ring back in to get their test, they definitely want an IVR. They don't really want to speak to someone. Okay, any more questions for Alison?
Oh,
yes.
yeah, we have one over there.
There's two. We'll go for Tim first. Then we'll
Okay, then Mr. Todd in the back there.
Tim, when you finish, can you just run the mic over to
Yeah, there you go. He's having a busy day.
So on that note, you ever get somebody asking, asking permission, you can skip this menu if you press 0.
Yeah.
But please try your automated menu, actually asking.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Yeah, people do write that in there. The other thing that people write frequently in there is, please listen to all of our options as they have recently changed, which I think is kind of full of crap.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, they say they've recently changed, but they haven't changed in
a
year and a half.
Yeah, again, that's another stock thing that people go, oh, yeah, we need to put that in there. So I really don't know what the trick is to get people to listen to options. Personally, I think if they said, listen to these 3 or 4 options and make your choice from that. I'd like to know how many there are. But as Carrie alluded to, sometimes you're there going, it's kind of number 1, but it sort of falls under number 2. I don't know which one to choose. Yeah, so I don't know. I think, again, keeping it short, maybe alerting the customer that there's only 4 choices. Yeah.
Next question is...
Oh, yes.
My question is, do you have any advice on hold music or preference for hold music to match voicings? Yeah,
good question. Royalty-free is obviously the name of the game. I have a lot of people just sending me a sound file of a Michael Jackson song and saying, can you mix this underneath? No, there isn't enough money to afford that. So I have royalty-free music available for on-hold systems that I record. Quite often I'll have people kind of frustrated with the choices that are available. They're like, do you have anything else? It's getting better. There are more and more libraries out there of royalty-free. With regards to the type of music to choose, again, I think that kind of fits in with the company image and the nature of the topic. I actually have a file set aside of music strictly for health clinics, because they seem to want that sort of, I don't know, doctor's office, dentist office music. And people love it, but it's kind of schmaltzy, but it's appropriate for certain situations. Yeah.
I'm for honesty in hold messages as well, all that stuff about we're experiencing unusually high call volumes.
Exactly.
I should really say that 2 of the guys are discussing a ball game.
Yeah.
One's browsing a website you shouldn't be.
Right.
We'll get you when we can.
Or do you mean to tell me if I called 5 minutes before I'd get through to the CEO? I don't believe you. Yeah.
Okay, time for one more live question, and after that you'll have to seek Alison out individually. And by the way, she's available for photo opportunities.
Stop it. So is he.
In IVRs, I end up being really frustrated when I'm in third level deep and the options don't meet what I got to do.
Yes.
So I need to speak to someone live. Yet I have no way to do that without hanging up and calling back in.
Yeah.
How often do you see IVR treaties where it allows for, at least that's written for you to voice over, that allows to reach a live operator at almost any menu point?
No, it's almost always reserved for the very last option. And I would say most people, I would say 80% of the people do factor in that if none of these choices work for you, please press 0. I also happen to know in a lot of systems, if you just press 0, sometimes that'll send you back to the start of the menu, so you have to really watch that. But most times, that will just default to the operator, even if they don't say so. So give it a try, although you could be frustrated and sent back to the very first.
How many of them do you get where people actually record in something that says, press star or some other key to go to the back to the previous level?
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah.
Because I bet that's another one of my pet peeves is going to systems where you hit an option, you got down to that level,
Yeah.
None of those options.
I know.
You know, it's like that. Some maybe one, maybe two.
Yes. Yeah.
You go down into one, and well, that didn't work. Let's go back up. You know,
It's all part of life's rich tapestry, show.
Yeah, yeah. Greg Bainline, I don't think he's here this year. He actually had me do a system where he got through with all of his serious options, and then the very last one was, if you'd like a cold beer, press 9. And he tracked how many people pressed 9. It was a phenomenal amount. I don't know how they thought we were going to administer a beer over the phone. Not that talented.
Talking of tracking, there was a company, I think it's called Phonolo, that did an amazing web to IVR tree tracker. It was like, I think it may have been an Asterisk-powered engine that rang up, went through and tracked it and put it onto a web page so you could click where you wanted and it would dial in and do the menus for you. One of the things that they uncovered was, when you hear that message about our menus have changed recently, so pay attention, they uncovered that less than 20% of the time is that true. They don't change them, they just stay the same.
Yeah.
What bad guys. Listen, if you want to talk to Alison, she'll be here, but right now we're going to close the session by saying thank you very much to the one and only Allison Smith.